Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I interview founders, entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, amazing people all around the world of crypto and blockchain. And this man I'm about to introduce you is successful in this industry. I'm looking forward to this conversation, and you should look forward to it too. What can I say? He is the co-founder and the chairman of Stable. His name is Reeve Collins. Reeve, welcome to the show.
All right, thank you. Great to be here.
You're very welcome. I'm very honored that you're here today with me. So let me ask you the first question to kick things off. What is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
Well, I would say so. My background is that I created the stablecoin. So this whole concept here over a decade ago with the founding of Tether. So put that together with some friends in 2013 was when the concept came about. And it's just turned into something that it's hard to imagine actually how big and how much of a monster that company has become. So the team that runs it now, so I have not been involved for many years, and we sold it in the end of 2015. But the team who's been running has just done such a phenomenal job, and I have such pride to see kind of Tether everywhere, and especially it also makes me proud just to see that right now the whole narrative right now is around stablecoins, and people are saying it's the killer app. I do find that amusing because it's been, around for a decade, and people are finally saying, "Oh, well, this is what the blockchain is good for." But yeah, so it's just great to see.
Awesome. So I want to congratulate you on the wild success of creating the stablecoin. Tether's very, very popular, and now you're creating Stable, right? So what's Stable all about, including your vision and your mission?
Yeah, so really the concept there, being so deep in the space, and after Tether, I created the first ever company that rolled out NFTs prior to there even being a word called NFT. So we just called it highly programmable digital goods. So unique digital objects that were programmable that could do different things on the blockchain. And we never thought that the least programmed thing of all would be the one that took off in the NFT space, meaning just an image and a JPEG. But it just really showcases how much the world wants to speculate and gamble. And when they had this opportunity to gamble on images, it took off. It's kind of given NFTs in itself a bad name simply because of the speculation around it. But the utility of NFTs, we've just scratched the surface, and more use cases will be coming to market for NFTs, and they're going to be such a significant part of our digital lives. Even in the financial space, we talk about RWAs right now. Those are also NFTs. There'll be a lot of RWAs that are actually specifically NFTs. They have a duration, they have an interest amount, and they have a dollar amount, and that's all going to be unique. So anyway, NFTs are here to stay. So I've been on the forefront of innovation since the advent of blockchain. Obviously, the stablecoin, and then with the NFT, and now with the evolution of the stablecoin. So stable, stbl.com. It seems like there's a bunch of companies these days using that type of name, but stbl.com, we've built the infrastructure for what I've coined to be stablecoin 2.0. So after a decade, it's time for the stablecoin to evolve. And there's two big issues with stablecoins in general. Number one is collateral. That's always been the question. Is the collateral there? Are these tokens really backed? Where's the collateral held? Where's the audits? Well, today and then on stablecoin 2.0, all of that collateral can be on chain. So now 100% of the collateral should be on chain because of the RWA narrative and all the tokenization that's taking place. The first thing that's being tokenized are treasuries, and then money market funds. Then other high quality, low risk assets are tokenized. Therefore, we can now use tokenized treasuries as collateral. And so there for the stablecoin, and now all that collateral is on chain. So that's kind of the first tenet of stablecoin 2.0. But the other one that's even more important is where the yield goes. So in all the traditional stablecoins, the yield and all that money goes to the issuer. They go to this centralized company that went out and bought that treasury on your behalf. And they bought the treasury, so they got all the yield. The first kind of pass at that solution was, oh, let's create a yield-bearing stablecoin, which is essentially just the tokenized treasury that the person holds that earns interest. However, that's a security and it's not freely trading. So stablecoin 2.0 has solved both of those issues. all the collateral's on chain, and the yield goes to the people that put that collateral into the system because we split the yield in two tokens. So imagine you buy a on-chain treasury. You buy $10,000 of a treasury. You post it as collateral on our platform. We strip the yield. You get a yield NFT, as I mentioned before, now financial NFTs. So you get a yield NFT, which is the tokenized income stream. You put that in your pocket, and then you get USST, our universal stablecoin, which is the principal. And so that freely trading stablecoin is identical to USDT and USDC. So now we've solved both things because all the people that gave Tether all that money, the 180 billion that's in there, they're not getting the interest. But now those people can buy the treasuries and just put a tokenized treasury in there and get the interest and still have the exact same product and same use cases with the freely trading USST.
Tether's been one of the most profitable companies ever. And that's been because they've been, having all the yield for themselves. And now that's going to be distributed. Isn't that a conflict as far as Tether is concerned? How are they going to be able to be a player in the space where people are earning the yield and they're not?
I mean, this is the natural evolution, and obviously Tether's so massive that they're going to be just fine, and they're going to navigate through, and they'll probably what I've said quite a bit is once this genie's out of the bottle, like this stablecoin 2.0 concept where the yield goes to the users and the collateral's on chain, everyone's going to have to be fast followers. Stable's the first, but you'll see more and more companies bringing this out because they can't not. Because once people understand that these are the basics of what a stable coin should be, then why would anyone use something else? So we'll see. It'll take a while for that evolution to happen, but it's going to make so much sense to people that these stablecoin 2.0 types of products that are coming is, I think, definitely going to dominate the market.
That makes sense. Everything you said makes sense to me. I get that. We said that was the treasury bills. The treasury bills are going to be on chain. So would the U.S. government be issuing T-bills on chain using the blockchain, or they already do that, or how is the government going to transition to using blockchain? Because we all know the government's been slow to do anything.
Yeah, no, the government won't be doing it, but there's many companies that are tokenizing treasuries. So the tokenization, this RWA narrative that we all hear about, the tokenization of these assets is like BlackRock's doing it, Franklin Templeton, Superstate, Janus Funds. All these large companies are tokenizing their assets and putting them on chain. One of the things they're tokenizing is treasuries and money market funds, etc. The reason people are tokenizing things is because it's the first time that you can take a traditional asset and increase its yield without materially increasing its risk. So it's the same asset, but when you put it on chain, it has more utility. And when you get more utility, that means the yield goes up because it's more useful. And so the risk that's introduced is smart contract risk and some DeFi risk, but that will be managed over time. But the increase in yield, because now it's composable, can be used in pieces in different DeFi applications. And you'll get more and more yield out of something that used to just be this very specific type of yield, like T-bill yield. And now it'll be used as collateral for stable coins. Therefore, it'll be more useful. And how does it be more useful? Well, in this instance, with stable, you can buy this on-chain treasury and sit on it and earn the 4%. But what did you do? You've lost the utility, right? You only earn that 4% from your T-bill if you keep it in your wallet. But now instead of keeping it in your wallet, you stake it as collateral, you still get the yield. In addition, you get the stable coin that you get to spend. So you get to earn interest while you spend the principal. So it's just a new day for these assets.
I like that you get to earn the interest while you're spending the principal. You
Yeah.
don't see that across the industry. If you spend the principal, you don't get anything.
Right.
You know. You said things will happen in time. Well, during that time, and these companies are all trying to issue, stable coins. There's going to be technical challenge. There's going to be technical challenges. There's going to be, and with those technical challenges, there's going to be opportunities that are going to open up in that space. What do you see in that while you're waiting over time? Those technical challenges and the opportunities that are going to come.
Well, that's what Stable was built to deliver, was to eliminate those technical challenges. I believe our product and our infrastructure is going to be the best infrastructure out there for ESS, and that stands for ecosystem specific stablecoins, a very fancy word for white labeled stablecoins. Every ecosystem, so large enterprise organization, and that has its own economy, right? It moves tons of money through all its employees and vendors and customers all around the world. They could benefit greatly from stablecoins, from all the efficiencies of making those payments via a blockchain. But in addition to just using another stablecoin, they can now mint their own and have their own brand asset. They have their own white labeled stablecoin and earn the yield from all that money that's circulating within their economy. And in addition to just earning the yield and being more profitable, since it's their own branded stablecoin and it's programmable money, they can program incremental rules into it. So whatever that company wants to do with its money, it now has a lot more control than it ever had before. It also has a lot more data and a lot more analytics on who are its best customers, who are its best vendors, which vendors don't pay, like all these different things. And imagine you could, at some point in time, adjust prices and rates real time based on all of this actual data and imagine being able to factor your own vendors, like provide different payment terms and all this stuff all programmatically. It's going to be a really interesting evolution when every large company has its own currency.
I'm beginning to now. Okay, I'll be honest with you. When I heard the word stablecoin bill and stablecoins, I had no interest in initially because, like, to me, like I like the idea of speculation to an extent. I don't like down speculation, but up's good. But I didn't see stablecoins as going up. But now that you say that it's a revolution where companies are going to be able to do so much more, why shouldn't every company want to create RWAs and have this data? Um, I think it's a no-brainer, right? What's going to be
Yeah.
possible?
And it's going to become easier and easier. Right now, we're at the bleeding edge of regulation, especially with large corporations and banks trying to navigate how to implement this technology. Um, but it's coming. And the current administration in the US has really paved the way and enabled for this type of innovation. So it's really been beneficial for the blockchain space. And the reason that stable coins are such a loud narrative at the moment is because all the big banks want to get involved. They all want to issue their own, all these big companies, because now they finally can, because they have the regulatory comfort that they're not going to get in as not the type of persecution they would have gotten in the past.
Got it. So so those are the benefits. So the benefits and the drawbacks of the launch. What are some of those drawbacks from launching stablecoins?
Complications, the complexity, I should say, incremental complexity. People are used to doing something one way. And think about these large companies that have these massive payment networks to different countries and different people and different currencies. They have this system. It's inefficient and slow, but they all know it. And a lot of people that operate it aren't really the most technically advanced sometimes. And so when we come in and we're not just making a slight shift, we're like completely ripping the guts out and replacing it. So the complexity of doing that on a large scale is it takes time, and you need people that are the early adopters that really want to forge ahead and showcase to the world how it can be done. And then you'll have a lot of fast followers.
Yeah, I do have a concern though. You're creating efficiencies within the company. You're creating data that's automated. You're creating all this stuff, and then you have employees who I lived through the last decade when I was at AIG when companies all talked about the cloud and laid off a whole bunch of people. What do you see as far as the need for excess employees? I guess there are going to be a lot of excess employees. And how do you think they could be redeployed, into the economy after the stable coins are going the way that you think they will be going?
Well, the stable coins aren't going to be what reduces employees' jobs and anything like that. That just makes things more efficient, and it definitely makes their the way they get paid and the speed they get paid much quicker, and a lot. So that part's good. It's AI that everyone needs to be concerned about. I'm sure that's talked to death, but it's true. And But instead of them being worried about losing their job, because every new technology revolution, people have that fear, it's just they need to learn to utilize those tools so they can be more efficient. Because now, if you're good at using AI, you can do the job of 10 people, whereas before you could only do the job, your job. But now you have these tools where you're just much, 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 much more productive. So that's what people really need to focus on, how to be expert in the tools and make themselves more valuable.
Yeah, I use AI tools sometimes to I don't make my books out of AI, but I use AI to help with editing. So,
Yeah.
um, but I want to talk about a concept that our company has, I don't know, created or you're enhancing the multi-factor staking, right? What's the importance of multi-factor staking, and why will more industry participants, follow down this path of the multi-factor staking?
Well, for us at Stable, we have two tokens, three tokens actually. We have our governance token, we have our yield NFT, and then we have USST, the stablecoin. So the multi-factor staking enables people to kind of amplify their rewards if they stake both the governance token and USST. So you can stake either one individually and earn yield, but if you stake them both, it amplifies the yield that's being earned. So it's just a way to really reward our community for participation, for utilizing the tokens. And also right now, we want people to get involved. We want them to mint stable coins. So they mint the USST and they get the yield. But at the moment, as when you start any network, you need acceptance, right? And so there's not a lot of outlets yet for USST because it's brand new. And so we want to provide our users the ability to get some yield at least. So they could just buy the treasury and earn a little bit of yield. But now they can buy the treasury, earn the yield. They can buy stable or governance token, mint USST, and then stake it all, and it increases the yield. So it just turns out to be a good investment for them, as long as, in this instance, the only other variable factor is the price of stable, of STBL, or governance token. So if that increases, then it becomes a really good investment. And if that stays the same, they're still getting the interest.
When I think of governance tokens, I think of DAOs and I think of groupthink. What are the benefits and the drawbacks to your governance token and the possibility of the DAO creation going forward?
Yeah, for sure. It's a big part of what we've put out there, is that this entire protocol and platform is built for the community. So the governance token will have more and more responsibilities over time as the community and as the system matures. But they'll get to vote on things like what is the collateral approved, and different aspects of our protocol. But for the most, like, the real heart of what we're trying to do, the real purpose is to deliver on the promise of Web3. And the promise of Web3 is that those people who put money into the ecosystem, into the platform, into the technology, or the participants, they're the ones that should reap most all of the rewards. And we do that in two ways. We're essentially giving back all of the yield minus the cost just to run this technology platform. We want to return all the yield. We do that by a direct way. If you mint, you get 80% of the yield, and the protocol keeps 20%. We use that for overhead and different things, but the remainder of that, which is going to be the majority of it, especially as we scale, goes to buyback. So if people have governance tokens in the market, we put it back in the market and we do buybacks. So we really use all of the money created by the system to support the ecosystem and that governance token.
I do want to get into buybacks because when I was at AIG, when we paid back the government, we did after that we did buybacks to help with the stock price, right?
Yeah.
But in crypto, there's no stock price, right? So why are premium buybacks important in crypto, and why is it an underlooked at area? People haven't really heard two people talk about it too much. So what are your views on why it should be important and everybody should be doing it?
Well, it's a fundamental part of our platform, especially as we scale and earn more fees from the platform, because we use that fee generation, that fee revenue, to do the buybacks in order to create this circle where the system makes money and those profits go back into the governance token. We buy it back, and then it supports the price.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Um, you mentioned earlier that that NFTs still have a negative name, right? Still a negative connotation, right? How do you think how do you think we can get beyond that negative connotation?
Well, the for the most part, on those NFTs, it's going to be people are now going to get more and more use cases and utility out of them. So the why they had the negative connotation is because everyone thinks an NFT is a Bored Ape, is some JPEG, is some image that everyone just gambled with and lost all this money and it made no sense. They are right. It didn't make sense. People tried to understand it. They're like, I don't get NFTs. Why are people doing this? Well, why do people play slot machines? They love to gamble, right? It was exciting. They buy these images and it went up. It was really a fun pastime for a lot of people, you know. Look, I was just at another conference, and one of the biggest booths there was the World Series of crypto trading. And so it's become a sport. So they get these guys down there, they put them 5 hour blocks and they get to trade, and whoever has the most money wins. And I read this article in South Korea that it's eclipsing esports in popularity, just crypto trading as a game. So that's why gambling is just another way to do it. And so, anyways, NFTs, that's really what drove that popularity in the beginning, and then the negativity because people just didn't understand the qualities of NFTs and how they're going to be utilized moving forward. But everyone now has digital wallets. They understand digital objects and digital currencies. And so more and more companies and corporations will be utilizing NFTs for loyalty points and rewards and coupons. And then plus all of your digital life will be an NFT, all of your documents and titles and things like that that will all live on chain, especially in countries that have really poor infrastructure for there's so many countries where like land titles is just a mess. And there's a lot of solutions being offered where now those will all be NFTs, etc. And so we've just scratched the surface on the use cases, and more are coming. A perfect example is our yield NFT. There never really was financial NFTs, but since you've bought $10,000 of a treasury that is a 90-day treasury and that earns that amount, those treasuries you bought, let's say, earn 3.7%, right? So you now have an NFT that represents exactly that. This NFT is going to accrue the tokenized income stream from that treasury. And so now that you own it, you know that this thing's going to make $3,000 in 6 months, let's say, right? You can sell it. You can sell it. You can then trade this NFT. If you don't want to wait the 6 months, you just sell it for the net present value or whatever you can sell it for. So that's new use cases that are coming for these NFTs.
Yeah. I started podcasting back in early 2021, just
Yeah.
as the NFT craze began. I had the opportunity to interview a bunch of artists and authors and creators, and they're happy because it was the first time they're making money in their lives. You know, so and you
But it's
mentioned,
crazy because back then anyone could just throw up a piece of art and put it out there and sell it. Those people never sold their art before because no one could gamble on it. But now people could buy it and try to resell it. And so yeah, I remember a lot of those artists, they thought it was incredible. And it just fed the beast and made it crazier and crazier.
yeah. Well, you mentioned the promises of Web3, and I wanted to find out from you what those promises are, because a lot of people think the promise of Web3 is 1000x. You know, it's not. So what I think that's a lost narrative, or a lost people have lost their way. What are the
That's
promises of
not the
Web3?
That's definitely not the promise of Web3. So the promise of blockchain, the promise of Web3 is not to make money. Those are that's the allure of blockchain and Web3. That's what's driven a lot of hype and excitement and people getting involved because there's a lot of money to be made. But the promise, like the reason, the purpose, the why of Web3 and blockchain. So the why of blockchain is the democratization of access to high quality financial services. The whole world can now be banked. So they can have top tier financial services at their fingertips. For us fortunate few that live in very developed countries, we have pretty good banking infrastructure. But there's a big population and percentage of the world that doesn't. And now, if they have a cell phone, they have very quality financial services. Not only the financial services, like the infrastructure now that's being offered to them. So I have another company called WeFi, wefi.co, which is the future of banking. It's a decentralized on-chain bank, a fully on-chain bank. So now anyone with a cell phone and internet connection can have high quality financial services and high quality currencies, because a lot of these countries' currencies aren't very good themselves, right? There's too much inflation. They don't hold their value. Now they can trade up to US dollars or other currencies. All of that is available now and going to become more and more available, easier and easier as time moves on. And so that's the promise of blockchain, is to just provide everybody the ability to plug in to the worldwide economy, because the World Wide Web allowed everyone to plug into information and it taught them a lot of things, but we still couldn't pay them. They still couldn't really participate in a business manner. And now they can, because you can pay someone across the world 4 cents if you want to, right? Like, so microtransactions on up. That's the promise of blockchain. The promise of Web3, which blockchain enabled, is that now that the whole world understands what wallets are and what tokens are, Web3 enables you to pay, like I said, 4 cents to people. So you can pay people for all their interactions. So now companies can pay all of that money that used to have to go to a centralized entity, can go to the people who put the value into the network, into the value into the ecosystem. For instance, with stable, you put the money in, you're the one that gets all the yield because you're the one that put the collateral in there. You're the one that minted the stable coin, so you should get the yield. And so more and more, and WeFi, the community who joins and uses the banking services, there's the WeFi token, the WFI token that powers that community. And a lot of all the fees and everything will go back into that token and reward them. And it's really, it becomes a community owned bank, and people get, the customers become more and more loyal because they essentially have stock in the company via the token. So the promise of Web3 is all the network participants in that community, in that ecosystem, in that network reap the majority of the rewards.
That makes sense. That sounds good to me. I did interview WeFi back in, I think it was May. I had an amazing conversation. Agni Linga at WeFi. That was a wonderful
Yeah,
conversation.
great.
People should
Yeah.
listen to that podcast too. Yeah, I like your definition. So I want to thank you very much for your time today. This has been a wonderful conversation. It flew by. So I have one last question for you today. It's how can people find out more information about you, about Stable? How can they do that?
Sure, stbl.com, or find us on X. Yeah, I'm on Twitter, Reeve C. And yeah, just reach out, dive in, and we've got a very vibrant community and it's growing. We've got a lot of amazing things in the mix. Same with WeFi. Lots of just great companies that I'm involved in that I'm very proud of.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time today.
All right, thank you. It was a pleasure.